You ever see a giant new factory or highway being built and wonder, what's stopping that project from causing a total environmental disaster? Well, today, we're diving into the crucial process that acts as our planet's first line of defense, the environmental impact assessment. Here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the big challenge of modern development. Then, we'll nail down exactly what an EIA is. After that, we'll unpack the step-by-step process, see what the final report actually looks like, and wrap up by connecting all of this to the bigger picture of sustainability. All right, let's kick things off with a scenario that really puts into perspective why this whole process is so incredibly important. So just imagine a huge new project is being proposed for your community. It could be anything, a new factory, a highway cutting through the landscape, or a big industrial plant. And these things, they often come with promises of progress and jobs, right? But that promise of progress immediately raises a massive question. How do we make sure we can build for the future without totally wrecking the environment we live in right now or harming the well-being of the local communities? Well, the formal process designed to answer that exact question is the Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA for short. At its heart, you can think of an EIA as a tool for looking into the future. It's a really systematic way to predict all the potential effects, both the good and the bad, of a project on the entire environment. And that includes people, wildlife, and natural resources like our air and water. I think this official definition is so telling. It really frames the EIA not just as a way to find problems, but as a proactive process. The key word here is mitigating. It's all about finding solutions and fixes before a single shovel hits the ground. Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this whole thing actually work in the real world? Let's break down the journey. This entire process pretty much unfolds in 7 key steps. It's a really clear path that takes a project from that very first question, like, do we even need to do a full study, all the way to monitoring its impact long after it's been built. This flowchart here shows that logical flow perfectly. You can see it's not just a straight line from start to finish. It's more like a cycle with feedback loops built in. See, that review step can actually send the whole process back a few stages if the report isn't good enough. It's really designed to be thorough. So that very first step, screening, is absolutely critical. It helps figure out just how deep the assessment needs to go. A lot of organizations use a category system just like this one. So, Category A projects, those are the big ones with potentially huge impacts. They require a full, comprehensive EIA, no questions asked. Now, a massive part of the whole assessment is coming up with what are called mitigation measures. And this isn't just some vague idea, it's a strategic plan. These actions usually fall into one of 4 buckets. You can avoid the impact completely, you can minimize how bad it is, you can work to restore the environment later on, or you can compensate for any harm that's simply unavoidable. So all of this intense analysis has to lead to something, right? Let's look at the key document that pulls everything together and helps shape that final decision. All of it. The raw data, the scientific predictions, the feedback from the community, and those detailed mitigation plans, it all gets compiled into one single comprehensive document. And this is called the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS. And believe me, this report is incredibly detailed. It covers everything from what the project is and what the environment looks like now, to a clear plan for monitoring effects down the road. And what's really important is that it also has to include a non-technical summary, so that you and I, the public, can actually understand what it says and get involved. And this is just so important to remember. The report is not the end of the line, not at all. It's a tool for the people making the decisions, for sure, but it's also a bridge to the public. This is where transparency and community feedback really become part of the process. So, this brings us to the ultimate goal, the reason this whole EIA process even exists. Let's look at the bigger picture. It's really helpful to know that the EIA is actually part of a larger family of assessment tools. So while an EIA, as we've been talking about, focuses on specific projects, something called a Strategic Environmental Assessment, or SEA, looks at the even bigger picture. It evaluates the environmental effects of broad policies, plans, and entire programs. When it all comes down to it, a really solid EIA process does way more than just protect nature. By thinking ahead, it protects communities, it helps avoid risky projects and costly delays, and it really ensures that the development we do is truly sustainable for the long haul. You know, the EIA is a powerful framework, but any tool is only as strong as our commitment to using it properly and honestly. And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. How do we make sure this process always strikes the right balance between the progress we want and the protection our planet absolutely deserves?